The whole room gasped. My brother stood there with his hands still raised, like he'd just delivered the winning argument in a debate nobody asked for. 200 people. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Great-aunts who'd driven 6 hours. My son's third-grade teacher who'd come because we'd invited her. All of them staring at my 8-year-old boy standing 10 feet from a microphone. Some people in my family still think I went too far that day. After everything you're about to hear, I want to know what you think. The reunion was at Riverside Park, the same place we'd been gathering every August since before I was born. White folding tables under oak trees, the smell of charcoal and cut grass. My mother had rented a pavilion this year because the family had gotten too big for just picnic tables. She'd hung banners with our family crest, something my father had designed in the 90s when he decided we needed one. I was standing near the dessert table when Marcus spoke. I'd been watching him all afternoon, the way you watch a storm building on the horizon. He'd had 4 beers. He kept looking at my son, then at me, then back at my son. I knew what was coming. I'd known for weeks. My son didn't cry when Marcus said it. He looked at me first. I nodded once. Then he walked to the microphone my uncle had set up for announcements and said, "Then I guess the DNA test in my pocket doesn't mean anything." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his shorts. Official letterhead. Lab seal, the works. My brother's face did something I'd never seen before. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. He looked at his wife. She wouldn't look back. Let me tell you how we got here. I need to start 23 years ago because that's when my family decided who I was going to be. I was 15. My sister Catherine was 17. We were in the living room of the house my parents still live in, 4 bedrooms in a subdivision that was new in the 80s and tired by the 90s. My father sold insurance. My mother kept the books for a dental office. We were fine, comfortable, the kind of family that went to Applebee's on birthdays. Catherine had just gotten her acceptance letter to state, full academic scholarship. My mother cried. My father opened a beer even though it was 2 in the afternoon. They called both sets of grandparents. My aunt came over with a cake. I was sitting on the stairs when my father saw me. He was on his 2nd beer by then. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't worry, kiddo, not everyone's cut out for college, you'll find something." I was 15, I hadn't even taken the SAT yet. My mother patted my knee. "Your sister got the brains, you got the personality, that's just how it works sometimes." Catherine didn't say anything. She cut herself another slice of cake. I went upstairs and did my algebra homework. I got a 94 on the test that Friday. Nobody asked about it. That was the first time, but it wasn't the last. It became the family story. Catherine was the smart one. I was the one who'd probably marry someone nice and have kids. My brother Marcus, he's 2 years younger than me, he was the athlete. He played varsity baseball, tore his rotator cuff junior year and never played again, but by then the story was set. I did go to college. State, same as Catherine. I paid for it myself, student loans and a job at the library that paid $8 an hour. I studied finance. My father thought that was funny. "You, balancing books?" he said when I told him my major. Well, I guess someone's gotta try. I graduated with a 3.7. Catherine spoke at my graduation party. She was in law school by then. She talked about how proud she was of me for finishing, like I'd completed a marathon in the back of the pack. My mother nodded along. I got a job at a commercial real estate firm 3 weeks later. $41,000. I didn't tell anyone the salary. My father asked if they offered benefits. Here's what they didn't see. I was good at it, not just competent. Good. I understood property values the way some people understand music. I could look at a building and see what it would be worth in 5 years. My boss, Richard Chen, noticed. 6 months in, he started bringing me to client meetings. A year in, he put me on commission. I closed my first major deal when I was 24. Industrial property on the east side. The owner wanted $400,000. I found a buyer at $475. My commission was $14,000. I'd made more in one transaction than my father made in 3 months. I took my family to dinner at Giuseppe's. That's the Italian place on 5th Street with the wine wall, floor-to-ceiling bottles. My father ordered chicken parmesan. My mother got fettuccine. Catherine brought her boyfriend, Derek, who worked in her law firm's IT department. My father asked how work was going. I said it was going well. He said, "That's good, honey. Steady work is important." I had signed 2 more contracts that week. I said, "Yeah, steady." Catherine talked about a case she was working on. My mother asked Derek about his family. Marcus showed everyone photos from a fishing trip. I paid the check. Nobody noticed. That became my life for 3 years. I worked 70-hour weeks. I closed deals on properties my family would never be able to afford. I went to their birthdays and Christmas dinners and listened to my father give me advice about saving money. I nodded, I smiled, I built my career in silence. When I was 27, Richard made me a partner, 20% equity. I was the youngest partner in the firm's 40-year history. He took me to lunch and said, "You're going to be very wealthy, Diane. I hope you're ready." I didn't tell my family about the partnership. I told them I got a promotion. My mother said that was wonderful. My father said I should make sure to keep contributing to my 401k. Catherine had made junior partner at her firm the year before. We threw her a party, 30 people, catered. My mother gave a speech about how Catherine had always been destined for greatness. I met James 3 months after I made partner. He came into the office looking to lease space for his consulting business. He was funny, kind. He laughed at things that weren't even jokes just because they made him happy. We got coffee, then dinner, then a lot of dinners. I didn't tell him about the money at first. I'd learned by then that money changed how people saw you. On our 4th date, he told me about his business. He helped small nonprofits with grant writing and strategic planning. He made maybe $50,000 a year. He loved it. I told him I worked in real estate. He said that sounded interesting. We talked about other things. We got married 11 months later. Small wedding. The judge's chambers downtown. James's sister and her husband were our witnesses. We told our families afterward. My mother cried because she didn't get to plan anything. My father asked if we were sure we could afford it. Being married, he meant the expenses. I was worth $2.3 million by then. I said we'd be fine. James knew about the money by our wedding day. I'd told him everything 3 months in after I realized I was going to marry him. He sat very quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Does your family know?" I said no. He said, "Why not?" I didn't have a good answer. Or maybe I did, but I didn't want to say it out loud because they'll take it. Not the money itself, they're not thieves, but they'll take the story. They'll make it about them. They'll find a way to explain why it makes sense, why I had advantages, why Catherine could have done it too if she'd wanted. They'll turn my success into evidence of their good parenting. I told James I just preferred to keep work and family separate. He looked at me like he didn't quite believe me, but he let it go. We bought a house 6 months after the wedding. 4 bedrooms, good school district, quarter-acre lot. We paid cash. I told my family we were renting. Catherine said that was smart. Why tie up money in property when the market was so uncertain? I owned 7 properties by then. I didn't correct her. My son was born 2 years later, early May. 7 pounds, 9 ounces. Perfect. We named him Julian. My mother came to the hospital and held him and said he had James's nose. My father said boys were easier than girls. Marcus brought a stuffed baseball. Catherine came 3 days later. She was pregnant with her first by then, 5 months along. She looked at Julian and said, "It's good you had a boy. Girls are so much more expensive." Her daughter, Sophie, was born that September. Catherine threw a gender reveal party, a baby shower, and a sip-and-see. My mother helped plan all 3. They had a photographer at the hospital. The birth announcement went out on cream cardstock with pink ribbons. Julian's announcement was an email with a photo I took on my phone. I need you to understand, I wasn't hurt by this. Not the way you might think. I'd stopped expecting my family to see me years before. What bothered me was the pattern. The assumption. The way they'd decided before Julian was even born that Catherine's children would matter more than mine. I went back to work when Julian was 8 weeks old. I'd lined up 3 new clients during my maternity leave, emails from the hospital, phone calls while James walked the baby in the hallway. Richard told me to take more time. I said I was fine. By Julian's first birthday, I was worth $6.2 million. The firm had expanded. We'd opened a second office. I'd hired 4 new associates. My father asked if I was still at the same company. I said yes. Here's where it started to crack, Julian's 3rd birthday. We had a party at our house. Bounce house in the backyard, face painting. A woman dressed as a dinosaur because Julian was obsessed with dinosaurs. 20 kids from his preschool, their parents. My family came. Catherine brought Sophie, who was 2.5. My mother brought a casserole even though we'd had it catered. My father stood in the driveway and asked how much the bounce house cost. Marcus pulled me aside during cake. "It must be nice." I said, "What?" He said, "All this." He gestured at the yard, the decorations, the dinosaur. "James must be doing really well." I looked at my brother. He was 31. He sold pharmaceuticals. He made maybe $70,000. He drove a leased Audi and lived in a condo his girlfriend's parents helped them buy. I said, "We're doing fine." He said, "I mean, I'm just saying. If you guys ever need help budgeting or anything, Catherine knows people, financial planners. She could set you up. I had 3 financial advisors. I had an estate attorney. I had a business manager and an accountant and a guy whose entire job was making sure I didn't pay more taxes than I had to. I said, "Thanks, Marcus. I'll keep that in mind." He clapped me on the shoulder. That's what family's for. That night, after everyone left, I sat in Julian's room while he slept. James found me there. He sat down on the floor next to me. He said, "You okay?" I said, "They think you bought all this." He didn't ask who, he knew. He said, "Does it matter?" I said, "No, probably not." But it did. Not because I needed credit, because their assumptions showed me exactly what they thought I was capable of, which was nothing. The next few years were more of the same. My family gathered for holidays and birthdays. Catherine's career became the family's main storyline. She made full partner. She won a big case. She got quoted in the newspaper. My mother kept every article. I kept closing deals. Bigger properties, more complex transactions. I'd moved into development by then, buying land, managing construction, selling completed projects. It required more capital, more risk. I was good at risk. Julian started kindergarten. He was bright, curious. He asked questions about everything, why the sky was blue, how boats floated, where numbers came from. I'd sit with him at night and we'd look things up together. James would find us at the kitchen table at 9 p.m., surrounded by library books about physics or marine biology or ancient Egypt. My mother said we were spoiling him. Too much attention. He'd never learned to entertain himself. He was reading at a 3rd grade level in 1st grade. He did multiplication in his head. His teacher, Ms. Evelyn Rodriguez, called us in for a conference and said Julian was exceptional. She'd been teaching for 26 years. She knew exceptional when she saw it. I didn't tell my family, I'd learned, but Ms. Evelyn saw things other people missed. At the spring concert, she pulled me aside. Julian was 6. He just performed a recorder solo. He'd practiced for 3 weeks. She said, "Can I tell you something?" I said, "Of course." She said, "I don't know what you're building with your work, with your life, but I can tell it's going to be something. I've watched you with Julian, the way you answer his questions, the way you never talk down to him." She paused. "You're teaching him that he matters. That's the foundation of everything." I'd never cried at a school event before. I almost did then. She squeezed my hand and said, "Some people are lucky enough to have parents who see them. Julian's one of the lucky ones." I thought about that conversation for months, years really, because she was right, I did see Julian. But my family, they'd never seen me, not once, not when it mattered. Catherine had her 2nd child when Julian was 7, a boy this time. She named him Alexander. The baby shower was at a country club, 75 people, a cellist. My mother and Catherine's mother-in-law co-hosted. They'd rented a chocolate fountain. I brought a gift. I stayed for an hour. I left before the games started. On the drive home, James said, "You don't have to keep going to these things." I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Why?" I didn't have an answer that made sense. Or maybe I did, because the day I stop showing up is the day they get to say I think I'm too good for them. And I wasn't ready to give them that story yet. Julian turned 8 in May. We threw him a party at a science museum, planetarium show, hands-on exhibits. His whole class came. Ms. Evelyn came too, even though Julian had moved on to 2nd grade by then. She'd kept in touch. She sent him books sometimes, recommended documentaries. She found me during the planetarium show. Julian was sitting in the front row, his head tilted back, completely absorbed. She said, "He's going to do remarkable things." I said, "I know." She said, "Does your family know how special he is?" I said, "They've never asked." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "Well, their loss." 2 weeks later, my grandmother died, my father's mother. She was 89. We'd expected it. She'd been in hospice for 3 months. The funeral was on a Saturday. The whole family came. Cousins I hadn't seen since high school. My father's brother flew in from Arizona. My mother's sister drove up from Florida. The reception was at Catherine's house. She'd insisted. She had the space, she said. She had the setup. My mother helped her with the catering. I brought a salad and a case of wine. Catherine said thank you, but she'd already ordered wine. I put mine in the basement. People filled the house. They told stories about my grandmother. Someone found old photo albums. My father cried. Marcus gave a speech about family legacy and staying connected to our roots. I stood in the kitchen with James and Julian. Julian was quiet. He'd loved my grandmother. She used to send him cards with $2 bills inside. She called him her little scholar. My Aunt Linda came into the kitchen. She was my father's youngest sister. She'd always been kind to me in that distant way relatives are when they don't see you often but mean well. She said, "Diane, honey, I wanted to ask you something." I said, okay. She said, your grandmother's house. Your dad says they're selling it. Have you thought about making an offer? My grandmother's house was worth maybe $250,000, 3 bedrooms, original hardwood, needed a new roof. I said, I hadn't thought about it. She said, well, you should talk to your dad. I know money's tight for you guys, but maybe you could work something out, family discount or something. James set his beer down very carefully. I said, that's nice of you to think of us. She patted my arm. I just worry about you, you know? Catherine's doing so well. Marcus has that good job. I want to make sure you're taken care of too. I'd taken care of myself for 23 years. I own 9 properties worth a combined $18.4 million. I just closed a deal on a mixed-use development that would net me $3.7 million when it sold in 2 years. I said, we're doing okay, but I appreciate it. She smiled. Good, I'm glad. You've always been such a trooper. After she left, James looked at me. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The estate settled 4 months later. My grandmother had left everything to my father, the house, the savings, the small investment account his father had set up in the 50s. Total value was around $400,000. Not a fortune, but not nothing. My father called a family meeting. Catherine, Marcus, and me, his house. Sunday afternoon. He said he'd been thinking about how to divide the inheritance. Legally it was his, but he wanted to be fair. He wanted to honor what his mother would have wanted. Catherine was getting $150,000. She just made full partner. She was doing well, but law school loans were brutal. This would help. Marcus was getting $125,000. He was getting married in the spring. Wedding costs were insane these days. This would give him a good start. I was getting $75,000. I said, okay. My father said, I know it's less, but you and James seem comfortable. You've got the stable income. You don't have the same financial pressures. I said, sure. My mother said, we just want to help where it's needed most, you understand. I understood perfectly. Catherine said, if you need it, if things change, we can revisit it. I said, it's fine, really. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I took the $75,000 and put it in Julian's education fund. It brought the total to about $900,000. Nobody asked what was already in there. That night, James found me in the office. I was looking at property listings. I did that when I needed to think about something else. He said, you should tell them. I said, tell them what? He said, everything, who you are, what you've built, your worth. He stopped. He never said the number out loud unless we were alone. You're worth more than all of them combined. They're giving you table scraps from an estate you could have bought outright without noticing. I said, I know. He said, so why do you let them? I looked at him. This man I'd married 9 years ago. This man who'd held Julian the night he was born and cried because he was so happy. This man who'd never once treated me like I was less than I was. I said, because I'm not ready yet. He said, ready for what? I said, to take it away from them. He understood. He always did. 3 months later, Marcus got married. Big wedding, 200 people. Country club, string quartet. My mother had planned half of it. Catherine was a bridesmaid. I was invited to the wedding, but not the bridal party. That was fine. I wore a navy dress I'd bought for a client dinner. James wore a suit. Julian wore a clip-on tie and thought he looked very professional. The reception had assigned seating. We were at table 12, not the family table, not even close to it. We sat with some of Marcus's college friends and their spouses. The best man's speech was funny. The maid of honor cried. My father toasted the couple and talked about building a future together. He said marriage was about partnership, about supporting each other through lean times and good times, about being realistic about what you could afford and what you couldn't. He was looking at Marcus when he said it, but I felt it. The assumption, the subtext, the unspoken hierarchy. Julian leaned over and whispered, Mom, I'm bored. I whispered back, me too, buddy. James heard us. He smiled. We left after the cake. Nobody noticed. In the car, Julian said, why don't they ever ask about your work? He was 8. He noticed everything. I said, what do you mean? He said, Grandpa always asks Uncle Marcus about his job, and Aunt Catherine talks about her cases, but nobody asks you. James glanced at me. I looked out the window. I said, I guess they think they already know. Julian was quiet for a minute. Then he said, but they don't. I said, no, they don't. He said, are you going to tell them? I said, someday. He said, when? I looked at him in the rearview mirror, my son, 8 years old, too smart for his own good sometimes, too observant. I said, when it matters. 2 weeks after the wedding, Catherine called. She needed a favor. Her firm was relocating. She'd found a great house, closer to the new office, better schools, bigger yard. The problem was timing. She needed to close in 30 days, but her current house hadn't sold yet. Could she borrow some money? Just to bridge the gap, 80,000. She'd pay me back as soon as the house sold. 2 months tops. I said, how much is the new house? She said, 750,000. I said, that's a lot. She said, Derek got a raise, we can afford it, we just need the bridge. I said, let me talk to James. She said, of course, but soon okay. The seller's getting other offers. I didn't talk to James, I knew what he'd say. I called her back the next day and said we couldn't do it, our savings were tied up. Maybe she could ask Mom and Dad? There was a pause. Then she said, they already helped with Sophie's preschool tuition. I can't ask again. I said, what about a bank loan? She said, I tried. The timing doesn't work. I need someone who trusts me. I heard it. The implication, if I loved her, I'd help. I was family, I'd figure it out. I said, I'm sorry, Catherine, I wish I could. She said, right, okay, I'll figure something out. She hung up, she didn't call again for 3 months. At Thanksgiving, she told everyone she'd got in the house. My mother asked how she'd managed it. Catherine said Derek's parents had helped. My mother said that was wonderful, family helping family. Catherine looked at me across the table. I looked back. Nobody said anything. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. But here's what you need to understand. It wasn't about the money. I would have given her 80,000 and not blinked. I'd spent more than that on Julian's playhouse. I donated 150,000 to Ms. Evelyn's school the year before when they were going to cut the gifted program. It was about what came after. Because if I'd given Catherine that money, she would have known. And once she knew, everything would have changed. The questions, the assumptions, the requests. The way they'd rewrite history to make my success about them. I wasn't ready for that, not yet. Julian started 3rd grade that fall. He was reading at a 6th grade level. He taught himself basic coding. He'd built a working model of the solar system with motors and lights. His teacher recommended testing for the gifted program. The test was 3 hours long. I sat in the parking lot and worked on my laptop. When he came out, he looked tired but happy. 2 weeks later, we got the results. 99th percentile across the board. The coordinator said Julian was one of the most advanced students she'd assessed in her career. I told James that night. He cried again, happy tears. I didn't tell my family. Julian asked why. I said because it was his news to share if he wanted to. He thought about it. Then he said, I don't want to. I said, why not? He said, because Grandma will tell Sophie, and then Sophie will feel bad. 8 years old. Already understanding what I'd learned at 15, Christmas came, big family dinner at my parents' house. Catherine brought her kids, Marcus and his wife came, my Aunt Linda was there, a few cousins. Julian brought a book, he read in the corner while the adults talked. Sophie tried to get him to play with her. He was polite but not interested. She was 5. He was 8 and reading about quantum mechanics. My mother said, Julian, honey, put the book away, it's Christmas. He looked at me. I nodded. He put the book away. Catherine said, he's always reading. Does he have friends? I said, yes. She said, I just worry, kids need socialization. I said, he's fine. She said, Sophie's in all these activities, dance, soccer, art class, it's so important for development. Julian was learning Mandarin on an app. He played chess at a club downtown. He'd won 3 tournaments. I didn't mention any of it. My father asked how work was going. I said fine. He said that was good. Consistency was important. I'd closed 4 deals that quarter, 22 million in total transactions. My commission was just over 2 million. I'd bought another property. I'd hired 6 new people. The firm was expanding into 3 more cities. I said, yeah, consistent. After dinner, my mother pulled me aside. She said she wanted to talk about my father's retirement. She said, he's thinking about retiring at 65. That's only 8 years away. I said, that's good, he's earned it. She said, the thing is, we're not sure we'll have enough. The pension isn't what we thought it would be. And with everything costing so much now, I said, are you asking me for money? She looked surprised, like the idea had never occurred to her. She said, no, of course not. I was going to say, we might need to ask all you kids to help out a little, if it comes to that. I said, how much does Dad think he'll need? She said, we're not sure yet, we're still figuring it out. But Catherine says we should plan for at least 5,000 a month to supplement the pension. 5,000 a month. 60,000 a year. I said, that's a lot. She said, well, we raised you 3, we think it's fair. I didn't say anything. She said, obviously Catherine and Marcus will contribute more, they make more, but we thought maybe you could do 1,000 a month, starting when he retires. 1,000 a month for potentially 20 years, $240,000. I said, let me talk to James. She hugged me. Thank you, sweetheart, I knew we could count on you. In the car going home, James said, no. Julian was asleep in the back seat. I said, she hasn't even asked officially yet. He said, she will, And the answer is no. I said, he's my father. James looked at me. We'd been married 10 years. He knew me better than anyone. He said, he's also the man who told you at 15 that you weren't cut out for college. Who gave you $75,000 while your siblings got more because he assumed you needed it less. Who's never once asked what you actually do for a living. I said, I know. He said, do you? Because from where I'm sitting, you keep going back. You keep letting them tell you who you are, and you keep saying it doesn't bother you, but I know it does. I said, what do you want me to do? He said, I want you to stop protecting them from the truth. I looked out the window. We were almost home. Our house. 4 bedrooms. The house my family thought we were renting. I said, soon. He said, when? I said, when I'm ready. But the truth was I'd been ready for a long time. I just hadn't found the right moment, the right reason. 3 months later, Marcus called. He needed advice, financial advice. He'd heard I was good with numbers. I said, what kind of advice? He said, investment stuff. I've got some money saved. I want to make it grow. Catherine said you might know some people. Said, how much are we talking about? He said, 35,000. I know it's not a lot, but I figured. I said, that's a good start. He said, really? Catherine said it wasn't enough to work with a real advisor. I had $17 million in managed investments. I'd worked with advisors who wouldn't take meetings for less than $5 million. I said, there are advisors who work with all kinds of portfolios. He said, could you set me up with someone good? I said, sure. I gave him the name of a guy I knew, someone who handled smaller accounts. Someone good. Marcus said, thanks sis, I knew I could count on you. He didn't ask what I was invested in. He didn't ask who I used. He didn't ask how I'd learned any of this. He just assumed I knew a guy. That spring my father had a health scare, chest pains. They thought it was a heart attack. It turned out to be severe acid reflux and stress. He was fine, but it scared everyone. My mother called a family meeting. We needed to talk about the future, about plans, about what would happen if something really did happen to Dad. We met at Catherine's house, her new house. The one Derek's parents had helped them buy. It was beautiful, open floor plan, granite countertops, a yard with a pool. We sat in her living room. Catherine had made tea. My mother had brought cookies. My father said, I don't want you kids to worry, but we need to be realistic. I'm 57. Things happen. My mother said, we've been talking to an estate planner. Catherine said, that's smart. My mother said, the house is paid off. That's good. But everything else, the retirement accounts, the savings, it's not as much as we thought. My father said, we've worked hard our whole lives. We've tried to be responsible. But with inflation and everything costing more, Marcus said, what are you saying? My mother said, we're saying we need to make sure we're all on the same page. About expectations. About who's responsible for what. Catherine said, you want to know if we'll help. My father said, we've always been there for you kids. We put you through school. I said, you didn't put me through school. Everyone looked at me. My mother said, what? I said, I paid for college myself, loans and work, you didn't contribute. My father said, well, we helped where we could. I said, you gave Catherine money for law school. You helped Marcus with his condo. You didn't help me. Catherine said, that's not fair. They helped you in other ways. I said, what ways? Nobody answered. My mother said, Diane, I don't think this is the time. I said, you're asking us to plan for your future. I'm just clarifying the past. There was a long silence. My father said, I don't know where this is coming from, but we've always treated you kids equally. I said, you gave Catherine $150,000 from Grandma's estate. You gave Marcus $125,000. You gave me $75,000. My mother said, that was based on need. I said, based on what you thought I needed. Catherine said, okay, everyone just calm down. I stood up. I said, I need to go. James stood too. We'd driven separately. He'd brought Julian. They were waiting in the car. My mother said, Diane, please. I said, let me know what the estate planner says. I'll think about it. I left. I heard them talking as I walked out. Worried voices, confused voices. In the car, Julian said, you okay, Mom? I said, yeah, buddy, I'm okay. But I wasn't. For the first time in 23 years, I'd pushed back. I'd said the quiet part out loud. And it had felt good and terrible at the same time. James followed me home. We put Julian to bed. Then we sat in the kitchen. He said, you told them. I said, not everything, just enough. He said, how do you feel? I said, like I started something I can't stop. He took my hand. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it wasn't. But I knew what came next. The questions. The defensiveness. The rewriting of history to make them right and me wrong. I'd spent 23 years being underestimated. I'd built an empire in the shadows. I'd let them think I was small because it was easier than being seen. But standing in Catherine's perfect living room, looking at my parents' worried faces, I'd realized something. I didn't want to be small anymore. I had everything I needed: years of evidence, documentation, numbers that didn't lie, and one phone call left to make. I called Patricia Reyes the next morning. She'd been my attorney for 6 years. I'd found her when I was buying my third property and needed someone who understood complex transactions. She was 62, former prosecutor. She did not waste time. "Diane," she answered on the second ring. "What's going on?" "I need to talk about estate planning," I told her. "Mine, and I need to do it quickly." She paused. "Has something happened?" "My father had a health scare." "Everyone's talking about inheritance now, about expectations. And you want to make sure your assets are protected." "I want to make sure my son is protected." She scheduled me for that afternoon. Her office was downtown, 18th floor, windows overlooking the river. I'd been there dozens of times. She'd handled every major transaction I'd done since I'd met her. I sat across from her desk. She had my file open, 4 inches thick. "Walk me through what you're thinking," she said. I explained the family meeting. The unequal inheritance, the assumption that I'd contribute to my parents' retirement, the way they'd calculated my portion based on what they thought I could afford. Patricia listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. "Do they know?" she asked. "About the money, no. Are you planning to tell them?" I looked out the window. A barge was moving slowly down the river. "Not yet," I said, "but I need to know that if something happens to me, Julian gets everything, not my parents." "Not my siblings, Julian." "That's straightforward. We set up a trust. You're the grantor, Julian's the beneficiary. We name a trustee to manage it until he's 25. I want James as primary trustee, you as backup." She made notes. "Anyone you specifically want to exclude from knowing the details?" I thought about Catherine asking to borrow $80,000. My mother calculating how much I should contribute monthly. My father dividing an inheritance based on perceived need. "Everyone except James," I said. "And you." She looked at me over her reading glasses. "Diane, what are you planning?" "I'm not planning anything. I'm protecting what I've built." She set her pen down. "I've worked with you for 6 years. I've never seen you like this." "Like what?" "Defensive. You're one of the most strategic people I know. You don't make moves based on emotion. So what's really happening?" I was quiet for a moment. Then I told her about Julian at Christmas. About him reading in the corner while Catherine criticized his socialization. About my mother telling him to put the book away. About the way my family had never once asked about him beyond the surface questions. "They don't see him," I said, "the same way they've never seen me." Patricia nodded slowly. "And you're done being invisible." "I'm done letting them define us." She pulled out a fresh legal pad. "Then let's make sure they can't touch what you've built. Not now, not ever." We spent 3 hours going through everything. The properties, the investments, the business interests, the accounts. She took notes in her precise handwriting. She asked questions I'd already answered for myself. At the end, she said, "You're worth just over $19 million. I nodded. "Your family thinks you're what, middle class, comfortable?" "They think James and I are doing fine. Steady jobs, probably some debt. Normal." She shook her head. "And you've maintained this for how long?" "Since I made my first major commission, 13 years. That takes discipline. It takes knowing who you are to them and deciding you're okay with it." She studied me. "Are you okay with it?" I thought about Julian asking why they never asked about my work, about James saying I needed to stop protecting them from the truth, about sitting in Catherine's living room and finally saying out loud what I'd known for 23 years. "I was," I said. "I'm not anymore." Patricia stood. She walked to her window. "I'll draw up the trust documents. You'll sign next week. But Diane, if you're planning something bigger than estate planning, you need to think carefully about what you want the outcome to be." "What do you mean?" She turned to face me. "Revenge feels good in the moment, but it doesn't usually solve the underlying problem. If you want your family to see you differently, showing them a bank statement isn't going to do it." "I don't want them to see me differently," I said. "I want them to see me at all." She considered that. "Fair enough, just make sure you're ready for what comes after, because once you open that door, you can't close it again." I signed the trust documents the following Thursday. James came with me. Patricia's paralegal witnessed. It took 20 minutes. Walking back to the car, James asked if I felt different. "No," I said, "but Julian's protected. That's what matters." "Your family's going to ask eventually." "About contributing to your dad's retirement." "I know. What are you going to tell them?" I unlocked the car. "I haven't decided yet, but I had. I was going to give them exactly what they expected. $1,000 a month, for as long as they needed it. I was going to let them think it was a sacrifice, and I was never going to tell them that I spent more than that on Julian's Mandarin tutor." 2 weeks later, my mother called. They'd finalized things with the estate planner. Dad was definitely retiring at 65. They'd need help. Could we all meet to discuss specifics? Catherine hosted again. This time Marcus brought his wife Emma. She was quiet. Nice. She worked as a nurse. They'd met in college. My mother had made a spreadsheet. She'd printed copies for everyone. It showed my father's pension, their social security projections, their estimated expenses. At the bottom was a gap. $5,200 per month. We think the fairest way to handle this is proportional contribution, my mother explained, based on income. Catherine was listed at $2,000 per month, Marcus at $1,500, me at $1,000. We know it's a lot, my father added, but we've always been there for you. It's what families do. Catherine looked at the spreadsheet. $2,000 a month is $24,000 a year. We can start with less if that helps, my mother offered. Maybe $1,800. Marcus turned to Emma. She gave a small nod. We can do $1,500, he said. Everyone looked at me. $1,000 is fine, I said. My mother's face lit up. Really? Oh, sweetheart, thank you. Catherine looked surprised. You're sure? I know you and James. We'll make it work, I interrupted. James had stayed home with Julian. We'd agreed that was better. He'd asked me one question before I left. Are you doing this to prove something or because you want to? I'd told him I wasn't sure yet. Driving home, I called him. It's done. $1,000 a month starting when Dad retires. How do you feel? Like I just bought something very expensive. What did you buy? 8 more years of them never asking the right questions. He was quiet. Then, that's a long time to keep a secret. I know, but I didn't plan to keep it that long. I just needed to figure out when and how to let it drop. I needed the right moment, the right reason. Summer came. Julian finished 3rd grade. His teacher recommended he skip 4th grade entirely. James and I talked about it. We decided against it. Julian was academically ready but socially still 8. He needed time to be a kid. Ms. Evelyn called me before school ended. She wanted to meet for coffee. We went to a place near the school. She ordered tea. I got an Americano. I'm retiring, she said, end of next year. I felt something drop in my chest. You're too young to retire. I'm 63. I've taught for 38 years. Tired? She smiled. But that's not why I wanted to meet. Okay, Julian's going to do extraordinary things, you know that. I hope so. You need to prepare for how people will react to his success, to what he becomes. She stirred her tea. I've watched a lot of families over the years. The ones who handle gifted children well are the ones who protect them from other people's resentment. You think people will resent him? I think some people resent potential, especially in children. Especially when those children make their own children look ordinary by comparison. I thought about Sophie, about Catherine's comments about socialization and activities, about the way my mother had told Julian to put his book away at Christmas. They already do, I said quietly. Ms. Evelyn reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Then you do what you've been doing. You keep him safe. You let him grow at his own pace. And you don't let anyone, not even family, make him feel like he needs to shrink himself to make them comfortable. I tried to keep my voice steady. He asked me last month why Grandma always talks about Sophie but never asks about him. What did you tell him? I told him that sometimes people don't know how to talk to someone who's different from what they expected. She nodded. That's good. That's honest. She paused. Can I tell you something I've never told a parent before? Of course. I've taught over 1,000 children. Maybe 30 were genuinely gifted. Of those 30, only 5 had parents who really saw them, who understood that intelligence like Julian's isn't just about grades or test scores. It's about seeing patterns other people miss, making connections that seem obvious once he points them out but that nobody else thought of. That kind of mind needs protection because the world isn't built for it. I know. You're one of the 5, Diane. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I cried in my car for 10 minutes after she left. Not sad crying, grateful crying, because she was right. I was protecting Julian, the same way I'd learned to protect myself. That fall, Catherine called. She needed advice. Not money this time, strategy. Derek's being considered for partner, she explained. It's between him and 2 other people. He needs to make a good impression. Okay, we're thinking about buying a lake house, something we can use for client entertainment, show that we're established. That sounds expensive. $450,000. We can swing it with Derek's bonus, but I wanted to run the numbers by you first. You're good with money stuff. I was managing a portfolio worth $19 million. I had 3 financial advisors. I'd closed over 100 deals. Have you talked to a financial planner? I asked. Derek's dad knows a guy, but you know how those people are. They always want you to play it safe. I pulled up a calculator on my laptop. What's Derek's bonus? 120,000, plus we have about 80 in savings. And your mortgage on the current house? 3,200 a month. I ran the numbers. A lake house would add another 2,000 in mortgage payments, plus maintenance, plus property taxes. They'd be stretched thin. Catherine, I know it's tight, but this is an investment, Derek's career, our future. Have you thought about what happens if he doesn't make partner? Silence. Then he's going to make partner. But if he doesn't, he will. And even if he doesn't this round, he will eventually. We need to position ourselves now. I thought about telling her. About explaining that buying things to impress people rarely worked the way you hoped. That real wealth was built slowly and quietly. That the people she was trying to impress probably didn't care about lake houses. Instead, I pulled up a spreadsheet. Send me your full financial picture. Income, expenses, debts, everything. I'll run some scenarios. Really? Thank you, I knew you'd help. She sent the documents that night. I spent an hour going through them. They made good money, a combined 340,000, but they spent almost all of it. Private school for both kids, 2 car payments. The mortgage. Catherine's wardrobe budget alone was 18,000 a year. I built her a spreadsheet, 3 scenarios. Best case, middle case, worst case. In none of them did the lake house make sense. I sent it to her with a note. This is what I see. The decision is yours. She called the next morning. This makes it look impossible. It's not impossible, it's just risky. But if Derek makes partner, then you'll have more money to put toward it. You could wait a year. The house might not be available in a year. Then it's not the right house. She was quiet. Then, I thought you'd be supportive. I am being supportive. I'm showing you the reality. No, you're being negative. You always do this. You focus on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. I'd built a multi-million-dollar business by calculating risk and acting on opportunity. I'd made hundreds of decisions about when to push and when to wait. I knew the difference between optimism and wishful thinking. I'm showing you the numbers, I managed. What you do with them is up to you. Fine, thanks for your help. She bought the lake house 3 weeks later. Derek's parents co-signed. My mother told everyone at Sunday dinner. She was so proud of Catherine, taking chances, building a life. That's what our generation did wrong, she said. We played it too safe. I ate my pot roast and said nothing. Marcus asked how the house hunting went. Catherine described the view, the dock, the entertaining space. My mother asked if we'd come visit. Catherine said, of course, it was for family. Nobody asked how they'd afforded it. Nobody asked about the financial risk. They just assumed Catherine knew what she was doing, because Catherine always knew what she was doing. After dinner, my father pulled me aside. I wanted to thank you, he said. For what? For agreeing to help with the retirement fund. Your mother showed me the spreadsheet. 1,000 a month. I know that's not easy for you and James. We'll manage. He put his hand on my shoulder. You've always been practical. That's a good quality. Catherine and Marcus, they think big, but you're steady. That matters too. I'd closed a deal that week worth $4.2 million. I'd been featured in a commercial real estate magazine. I'd hired 2 new associates. I was expanding into another city. Thanks, Dad, he hugged me. I'm proud of you, kiddo. You turned out just fine. I went home and sat in my office for an hour. I didn't work. I didn't read. I just sat there. James found me. You okay? He said I turned out fine. That's good, right? He has no idea who I am. None of them do, and they're proud of me for being exactly what they think I am, which is less than I actually am. James sat down next to me. So tell them. Not yet. Why not? Because I need to know something first. What? If they'd treat me differently if they knew, or if they'd find a way to make it smaller, to explain it away, to turn it into something that makes sense in their story instead of mine. How are you going to find that out? I looked at him. I'm going to test them. Test them how? I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. I figured it out 3 weeks later. Julian's 9th birthday was coming up. We were planning a party, nothing huge, just family and a few of his friends from the chess club. I called my mother. Can you help me with something? Of course, honey, what do you need? I'm planning Julian's party. I wanted to do something special, but money's a little tight this month. Could you loan me $2,000? Just until next month. I'll pay you back. There was a pause. I could hear her breathing. 2,000, she repeated. For the party, I want to rent this science center space. Julian's really into astronomy right now. They do this whole planetarium show, but it's expensive. How expensive? The package is $3,500. I have $1,500 saved. I just need the rest. Another pause, longer this time. Sweetheart, that seems like a lot for a birthday party. I know, but Julian, he's been through a lot this year. The testing, the gifted program stuff. I want him to have something special. Have you thought about just doing something at home? A cake, some decorations. Kids don't need all this fancy stuff. I know they don't need it, I just thought, $2,000 is a lot of money, Diane. What does James think? He thinks I should ask you. That was a lie. James didn't even know I was making this call, but I needed to know what she'd say. I needed to see if she'd help me the way she'd helped Catherine with Sophie's preschool. The way she'd helped Marcus with his wedding. I don't think we can do that, she said finally. We're trying to save for your father's retirement. Every bit counts. Right, of course, I understand. Why don't you ask Catherine? She and Derek are doing so well, they might be able to help. No, it's fine, I'll figure something out. Are you sure? Because we could maybe do 500? Don't worry about it, Mom, really, I'll just do something smaller. That's probably wise. Kids remember the people, not the parties. I hung up. I sat very still for a long time, then I opened my laptop. I found the Science Center's website. I booked the premium package. $4,200, planetarium show, hands-on exhibits, a private room for cake, a telescope demonstration on the roof. I paid with the credit card I used for personal expenses, the one that had a limit of $50,000, the one my parents didn't know existed. James came home and found me at the kitchen table. You're smiling, he observed. That's either very good or very bad. I asked my mother for $2,000. His face changed. Why would you? To see what she'd say. What did she say? That she couldn't help, that they're saving for retirement, that maybe Catherine could loan it to me instead. James sat down. And how do you feel? I feel like I just got exactly the information I needed. Which is that it was never about the money. It's about who they think deserves it. Catherine got help buying a $750,000 house. Marcus got help with his wedding. I asked for $2,000 for Julian's birthday and got a lecture about being practical. So what now? Now I do the second test. There's a second test. There's always a second test. I called Catherine the next day. I told her I was working on a project. A client wanted to invest in commercial real estate. Did she know any good attorneys who specialized in property law? How big is the investment? She asked. Around $5 million. I heard her shift the phone. $5 million, Diane, who's the client? I can't say yet, confidentiality, but they're serious. They want to move quickly. And they're working with you? They reached out through Richard. I'm consulting on the deal. Consulting, like you're getting a fee? A percentage if it goes through. Silence. Then, how much of a percentage? That depends on the final terms, but probably around 3%. 3% of $5 million is $150,000. Yes. More silence. I could almost hear her recalculating everything she thought she knew about me. I didn't know you did deals that big, she said carefully. I don't usually talk about work. No, you don't. A pause. Does Mom know? Know what? That you're working on deals like this? Why would she need to know? I don't know. I guess I thought you were more like administrative. You know, coordinating things. I'd been a partner for 11 years. I'd closed deals worth over $100 million cumulatively. I had 4 people working directly under me and another 6 on project teams. I do some coordinating, I admitted, among other things. Well, that's great, really great, congratulations. Thanks, so do you know anyone for the property law question? She gave me 2 names, both good attorneys, both people I'd already worked with on previous deals. I thanked her and hung up. That night at dinner, my phone rang, my mother. Catherine told me about your deal, she said. No hello, no preamble. What deal? The $5 million investment. She said you're making $150,000. I set my fork down. James looked up. Julian kept eating. It's not final yet, I hedged, but if it goes through, yes, I'll make a fee. $150,000. Around that. Deanne, her voice had changed, gotten sharper. How long have you been doing this kind of work? A while. How long is a while? Mom, I really can't talk about it. Client confidentiality. I'm not asking about the client, I'm asking about you. How long have you been making this kind of money? I do okay. Okay, Deanne, $150,000 is more than your father made in his best year. It's not a typical deal. How many deals like this do you do? Mom, how many? I closed my eyes. A few a year. The sound she made was somewhere between a gasp and a laugh. A few a year. It varies. And you never told us. It never came up. Never came up, Diane. We've been planning Dad's retirement. We calculated how much everyone could contribute. You said you could do $1,000 a month. If you're making, the deal hasn't closed yet. I don't have the money. But when you do, Mom, I need to go. We're having dinner. We need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. I have a job. I'm good at it. That's all. That's all, Diane. This changes everything. I hung up. My hands were shaking. James reached across the table. Are you okay? Julian looked between us. What's wrong? Nothing, buddy, I managed. Grown-up stuff. Is Grandma mad? Grandma's surprised. Why? Because I didn't tell her something she thinks she should have known. Julian thought about that. Did you lie? No. Then why does it matter? Out of the mouths of children. That's a good question, I told him. My phone rang again. Catherine, I didn't answer. Then Marcus. Then my mother again. I turned it off. James said, you started something. I know. Are you ready for what comes next? I thought about my mother's voice, the shock, the recalculation, the immediate jump to the retirement fund. Not even close, I admitted, but it's too late now. They called an emergency family meeting. Sunday afternoon. Catherine's house. Everyone needed to be there. I didn't want to go. James said I had to. We got a babysitter for Julian. We drove to Catherine's in silence. Everyone was already there. My parents, Marcus and Emma, Catherine and Derek, they were in the living room. Catherine had made coffee. Nobody was drinking it. Sit down, my father said. I sat. James sat next to me. Catherine told us about your deal, my mother started. It's not finalized. I don't care if it's finalized. I want to know how long you've been making this kind of money. I looked at Catherine. She wouldn't meet my eyes. A while, I repeated. How long is a while? My father pushed. Does it matter? Yes, it matters, my mother snapped. We've been planning your father's retirement based on what we thought everyone could afford. You told us $1,000 a month. If you're making hundreds of thousands, I said the deal hasn't closed. But you're working on it, which means you're capable of closing it, which means you're making more than you've let on. I felt James tense beside me. Marcus leaned forward. Deanne, just tell us, how much do you actually make? That's private. We're family, my mother protested. We don't keep secrets from each other. Don't we? I looked around the room. Catherine bought a lake house without telling anyone she was stretching herself thin. Marcus got married without mentioning that Emma's parents paid for half of it. Dad's been taking blood pressure medication for 2 years, and nobody said anything until he ended up in the ER. We all keep secrets. Mine just happened to be about money. That's different, Catherine tried. How? Because we're trying to help Mom and Dad, we need to know what everyone can actually contribute. There it was, the real question. Not how much do you make, how much can we have? I stood up. I can contribute $1,000 a month. That's what I agreed to. That's what I'm comfortable with. Comfortable? My mother's voice rose. If you're making 6 figures, I didn't say I was making 6 figures. The deal is $150,000. The deal is one transaction. It doesn't represent my annual income. My father stood too. Diane, we raised you to be honest, to share with family. If you have more than you've told us, we deserve to know. Why? Everyone stared at me. Why do you deserve to know? I repeated. What will change if I tell you? We can plan better, my mother said. We can make sure everyone's contributing fairly. You mean you can ask me for more? That's not fair, Catherine protested. Isn't it? Mom called me 3 weeks ago. I asked her for $2,000 for Julian's birthday. She said she couldn't help because they were saving for retirement. But now that you think I have money, suddenly we need an emergency meeting to discuss my contribution? My mother's face went very red. You asked me for money when you had. When I had what? You don't actually know what I have. You're making assumptions, just like you've always made assumptions about me. What's that supposed to mean? My father demanded. I'd kept this quiet for 13 years. I'd let them think I was less. I'd nodded and smiled and let them tell me who I was. I'd built an empire in secret because it was easier than fighting for space in a family that had already decided I didn't need it. But standing in Catherine's perfect living room, looking at their confused and angry faces, I realized something. I didn't owe them the truth. Not all of it, not yet. It means I'm happy to contribute what I agreed to, I said evenly. $1,000 a month, starting when Dad retires. If that's not enough, you'll have to figure out the rest. We just want to know, my mother started. I know what you want. The answer is no. My finances are my business. I walked out. James followed. Nobody tried to stop us. In the car, I started laughing. Not happy laughing. The kind of laughing you do when you've been holding your breath for so long that letting it out feels like breaking. That was the second test, I said. What did you learn? That they don't want to know who I am. They want to know what I can give them. James drove in silence for a few blocks. Then, so what's the third test? I don't know yet, but I need it to be something they can't ignore. Something that proves exactly who they are. And then what? And then I decide what to do with that information. I found the third test 2 months later, my father's birthday. He was turning 58. My mother was planning a party. Family only, dinner at their house. I called her a week before. I want to contribute something special, I told her. Oh, honey, you don't have to. I want to. I've been thinking about what you said, about family supporting family. I want Dad to know I'm there for him. I could hear the relief in her voice. That's wonderful, sweetheart. What were you thinking? I want to set up a trust for his retirement, something guaranteed. I'll put in $50,000 to start it. It'll grow over the next 7 years. By the time he retires, it should be worth around $80,000. Extra cushion. Silence, long silence. $50,000, she finally said. Yes. You have $50,000 to put in a trust? I've been saving. The deal I mentioned went through. I want to use part of it for this. Diane, that's incredibly generous. I want to tell him at the party, make it official. I'll have the paperwork drawn up. He just needs to sign as the beneficiary. He's going to be so surprised, so touched. I hope so. I hung up. Then I called Patricia. I need you to draw up trust paperwork, I said. It needs to look real but not be real. Can you do that? What are you planning? A test. Deanne, please, I need to know, she sighed. I'll send you a template. You fill in the details, it'll look official. But don't sign it and don't have him sign it. If nobody signs, it's just paper. Perfect. The party was on a Saturday. Everyone came. Catherine brought an expensive bottle of scotch. Marcus brought a framed photo from a fishing trip he and Dad had taken years ago. I brought the trust paperwork in a leather folder. We ate dinner. Pot roast and mashed potatoes. My mother's specialty. We sang Happy Birthday. My father blew out the candles. He was bad at it, took 3 tries. After cake, I stood up. I have something for Dad. Everyone looked at me. My mother was smiling. She knew what was coming. I handed him the folder. I wanted to do something to show you how much I appreciate everything you've done for me, for all of us. He opened it. His eyes scanned the first page. I watched his face change. Confusion, understanding, shock. He looked at my mother. She's giving me $50,000. Catherine's head snapped toward me. Marcus set his beer down. It's a trust, I explained. For your retirement, I'll fund it this month. It'll be there when you need it. My father stood. He hugged me. He was crying. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. My mother was crying too. Diane, this is too much. It's not too much. You raised me. You taught me to work hard, to save. This is me paying that forward. Catherine stood. She pulled me aside while Dad showed Marcus the paperwork. You have $50,000, she whispered, just sitting there. I saved it. From what? Diane, you said you were a consultant. You said the deal was unusual. I've been lucky. Lucky, she laughed, not a nice laugh. You let us all sit there planning Dad's retirement. Calculating contributions. You said you could only do $1,000 a month. And you have $50,000 to drop on a trust? I wanted it to be a surprise. It's a surprise, all right. She looked at me differently, like she was seeing someone she didn't recognize. How much do you actually have, Diane? Enough. Enough for what? Enough to help when it matters. She shook her head. You've been lying to us. I've been private, that's different. No, you've been lying, letting us think you were struggling, letting us worry about you. When all along what? I was doing fine. I've been doing fine for 13 years, Catherine. You just never asked. My mother called my name. They wanted a photo, Dad with the trust paperwork, the whole family. We gathered, we smiled. Catherine's camera flashed. I went home an hour later. James had stayed with Julian. He looked up when I walked in. How did it go? They took the bait. All of them. Every single one. He stood. He wrapped his arms around me. Are you okay? I thought about my father crying. About Catherine's face when she realized I had money I'd never mentioned. About my mother telling everyone I was so generous, so thoughtful. Ask me again in a week, I said. A week later, Catherine called. She needed to talk. Could we meet for lunch? We met at the Italian place, the one with the wine wall. She ordered a salad. I got soup. I've been thinking about the trust, she opened. Okay. It's really generous. Dad's thrilled. Good. But it made me wonder. About your situation, about what you've been doing all these years. She paused. Derek and I have been talking. We're worried about you. Worried how? You're being too generous, giving away $50,000. That's a lot of money. We just want to make sure you're not overextending yourself. I set my spoon down. I appreciate the concern. Because if you need help, if you've gotten yourself into some kind of situation, what kind of situation? I don't know. Debt? Bad investments. Sometimes people make big gestures when they're trying to hide problems. I stared at her. You think I'm in financial trouble. Are you? No. Then where did $50,000 come from? I told you I saved it. From consulting work. Yes. Diane, she leaned forward. I'm a lawyer. I know what consultants make, even good consultants. Unless you're working for a huge firm, there's no way you're pulling in that kind of money. Maybe I'm working for a huge firm. Are you? I thought about Richard's office, the 18 floors, the 300 employees across 4 cities, the annual revenue in the hundreds of millions. I work for a good company, I said. Doing what? Commercial real estate. As a consultant. As a partner. Her face went completely still. A partner? Yes. For how long? 11 years. She sat back. She picked up her water glass, set it down without drinking. 11 years? Yes, you've been a partner for 11 years and you never mentioned it. It never came up. Never came up. She started laughing, the kind of laugh that sounds like she's choking. Diane, partners make, she stopped. How much do you make? That's private. We're sisters, which is why I'm not telling you. I'm trying to help you. With what? With understanding your situation, with making sure you're not making mistakes. I leaned forward. Catherine, I'm not making mistakes. I'm not in debt, I'm not in trouble. I gave Dad $50,000 because I wanted to, because I could, that's all. That's all. She was looking at me like I was a stranger. You know what this means, right? If you're a partner, if you've been a partner for 11 years, you're making serious money. I'm doing fine. Fine, that's your word. Fine, when you probably make, what, 6 figures more? I didn't answer. More, she breathed. You make more than 6 figures. I need to go. I stood. Wait, Catherine, I came to lunch because you said you wanted to talk. We've talked, I have work. This conversation isn't over. Yes, I said quietly. It is. I walked out, I got in my car, I drove to my office. I sat at my desk and I cried, not because I was sad, because I was done. I had run 3 tests. I had gotten 3 answers. Test 1, my mother wouldn't loan me $2,000 but expected me to contribute $12,000 a year to my father's retirement. Test 2, the moment they thought I had money, they called an emergency meeting to recalculate my obligation. Test 3, when I offered $50,000 as a gift, they questioned my stability and tried to extract information about my full financial picture. They didn't want to know me. They wanted to know what I was worth. I'd spent 13 years being invisible, letting them think I was less, building something they couldn't see because they'd never bothered to look. I was done being invisible. I called Patricia. I need you to draft something. What kind of something? A presentation, PowerPoint, or something similar. I need to show my family exactly who I am, what I've built, everything. She was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. When do you want to do this? The family reunion, August 15th. Everyone will be there, 200 people. That's dramatic. That's the point. And after, when they know, I thought about Julian. About the way he'd asked if I was going to tell them. About the way he'd known, even at 8, that some truths need the right moment. After, I said, we'll see what's left. I had 62 days, I made lists, I gathered documents. I compiled every deal, every property, every investment. Patricia helped me organize it. We built a presentation that told the whole story. I didn't tell James everything, just that I was going to do it. He asked if I was sure. I said yes. He said he'd be there. I didn't tell Julian anything. He didn't need to know. Not yet. I went to work. I closed deals. I lived my life. But every night I looked at that presentation. I added things, I refined it, I made it perfect, because I only got one chance at this. One moment to show them who I really was, and I was going to make it count. I want you to remember what I said at the beginning, about whether I went too far. Keep that question in your mind during everything I am about to tell you. August 15th arrived. The family reunion. Same park, same pavilion, same white folding tables under oak trees. I arrived early. James and Julian came with me. We helped set up chairs. We arranged the dessert table. I smiled at my cousins. I hugged my aunts. I acted exactly like I'd acted every year for the past 23 years. My mother had hired a photographer. She wanted good pictures this year. The whole family together. She'd made matching t-shirts with our family crest. I wore mine. Catherine arrived at noon, Derek and the kids with her. She waved. I waved back. We hadn't spoken since the lunch where she'd questioned my stability. That had been 6 weeks ago. Marcus came with Emma. Their daughter was 2 now. She ran straight for the playground. My father was grilling, burgers and hot dogs. The smoke drifted across the pavilion. It smelled like every reunion I'd ever been to. Ms. Evelyn arrived at 12:30. I'd invited her. She was family to us, in ways my actual family had never been. She brought lemonade. Julian ran to hug her. Quite a crowd, she observed, looking around. 200 people, I confirmed. That's a lot of witnesses. I looked at her. Yes, it is. She squeezed my hand. I'll be right here. By 1 o'clock, everyone had arrived. Cousins I hadn't seen in years, great-aunts, second cousins, people whose names I'd forgotten but whose faces I recognized from old photos. My uncle had set up the microphone for announcements. He always did the welcome speech. Talked about family legacy, about staying connected, about honoring the people who came before us. We ate, we talked. Kids ran between tables. Someone's dog got loose. My mother took photos. The photographer took more photos. Everything was normal. At 2:30, my uncle tapped the microphone. "Can I get everyone's attention?" People gathered. Kids kept playing on the playground, but the adults moved closer. "Welcome to the 87th Annual Family Reunion," my uncle started. "We gather here every year to celebrate our shared history, our shared name, our shared blood." People clapped. My father smiled. My mother stood next to him, beaming. "This year we have some special announcements," my uncle continued. "First, we want to recognize Catherine. She made full partner at her firm this year. That's a huge achievement. Let's hear it for Catherine." More clapping. Catherine stood. She did a little bow. Derek put his arm around her. "We also want to recognize Marcus. Got promoted to regional sales manager, covering 5 states. That's our boy." Marcus pumped his fist. Emma clapped. "And we want to thank everyone who contributed to the family fund this year. Your generosity helps us maintain this beautiful tradition." My mother looked at me. She smiled. I knew what she was thinking. About the trust I'd promised my father. About the $1,000 a month I'd agreed to contribute. My uncle was about to hand the microphone back when Marcus stood up. "Actually, Uncle Pete, can I say something?" My uncle looked surprised but handed him the microphone. Marcus walked to the front. He was holding a beer. His third, maybe fourth. He looked happy, confident. "I just wanted to take a minute to talk about family," he started. "About what it means to be a part of something bigger than yourself." People nodded. My father raised his beer. "We all carry this name," Marcus continued. "We all share this legacy. And I think it's important that we remember this family is built on real connections, real blood, real history." He was looking around the pavilion, smiling at people. Then he looked at Julian. My son was standing near the dessert table with Ms. Evelyn. He was eating a cookie. He wasn't paying attention to the speech. "I love this kid," Marcus gestured toward Julian. "I really do. He's a great kid. Smart, polite, well-behaved." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "But I think we need to be honest about something." Marcus took a drink. "Julian isn't actually part of this family. Not really, not by blood." The pavilion got very quiet. Julian looked up. He'd heard his name. Marcus kept talking. "James is a good guy. Nobody's saying he isn't, but he's not one of us. He doesn't carry our name. He doesn't have our history. And that means Julian, as much as we all care about him, he's not really a member of this family in the way the rest of us are." My mother touched Marcus's arm. "Marcus, maybe we should," he shook her off. "No, Mom, this needs to be said. We talk about family legacy all the time, about preserving our name, about passing things down, but if we're being honest, Julian isn't part of that legacy. He's Diane's son, sure, but he's not really ours." 200 people, not a sound. Catherine stood. "Marcus, sit down." "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking," Marcus protested. "We can't pretend, Marcus." My father's voice was sharp. "That's enough." But it wasn't enough. It was exactly what I'd needed. Marcus looked around. He seemed to realize he'd miscalculated. "I didn't mean, I'm just saying." Julian walked to the microphone. He was 8 years old. He was holding something in his hand. Marcus stepped back. Julian took the microphone from him. "I have something," Julian said. His voice was clear, calm. He'd practiced this with me for 2 weeks. He held up the paper. "This is a DNA test. My mom and I took it last month. It shows that I'm related to everyone here. Through my mom, who is your sister, Uncle Marcus, which makes me part of this family by blood." The whole room gasped. I stood up. I walked to the front. I put my hand on Julian's shoulder. Marcus's face had gone completely white. "But since we're talking about family legacy," I continued, taking the microphone from Julian, "I think we should talk about what that actually means." My mother started toward me. "Deanne, this isn't the time. This is exactly the time." I looked around at 200 faces, cousins, aunts, uncles, people I'd known my entire life. Because my brother just stood up in front of all of you and said my son doesn't belong, and I think that deserves a response. My father moved closer. "Sweetheart, let's talk about this privately." "No, Marcus made this public. We're keeping it public." I pulled out my phone. I connected it to the speaker system my uncle had set up. The screen appeared on the projector he'd brought for the slideshow we did every year. "I want to show you something," I announced. "It's a presentation I put together about family legacy, about what we pass down, about who we really are." Patricia had helped me design it. 30 slides, numbers, documents, photos, everything. The first slide appeared. Just my name and one sentence, the real story. "I'm going to tell you about what I've built over the past 13 years, I began. "And I'm going to explain why I never told any of you about it." Catherine stood. "Deanne, you don't need to do this." "Yes, I do." I advanced to the next slide. It showed a photo of me at 24, my first major sale, standing in front of an industrial building. The commission had been $14,000. This is where it started, I explained. I was 24. I'd been working in commercial real estate for 2 years. I closed my first big deal. My family didn't know because I didn't tell them. I took them to dinner that night. I paid for everyone's meal. Nobody asked where the money came from. Next slide. A timeline, year by year, properties acquired, deals closed, commission earned, all amounts written out. 14,000, 43,000, 91,000. By the time I was 27, I'd made partner, 20% equity in a firm that does over 200 million in annual transactions. I didn't tell anyone because, well, let me show you why. Next slide, a photo of Christmas. 5 years ago, my father was handing Catherine a check. The caption read, "Law school graduation gift $15,000. Catherine got $15,000 for graduating law school. Marcus got $12,000 when he bought his first car. I got a card that said, 'Proud of you when I made partner.'" I heard someone cough, uncomfortable shifting in chairs. "I'm not bitter about that," I clarified. I didn't need the money. But it taught me something important. My family had already decided who I was, what I was capable of, how much I mattered, and nothing I did was going to change that. Next slide. Grandma's estate division. 150,000, 125,000, 75,000. This is how my father divided my grandmother's inheritance, based on what he thought we needed. Catherine needed the most because law school debt is brutal. Marcus needed less because he was doing okay. I needed the least because, and I quote, "You and James seem comfortable." My mother made a sound, like a protest stuck in her throat. But here's what my father didn't know. Next slide. My net worth at the time of the inheritance, $8.4 million. The number hung there, projected 10 feet tall. People started murmuring. I heard my Aunt Linda say something to the person next to her. "I could have bought my grandmother's house outright," I continued. "I could have bought all 3 of our childhood homes. I could have given each of my siblings $1 million and not noticed the difference in my bank account." Marcus sat down heavily. But I didn't say anything. I took my $75,000. I said thank you. I put it in Julian's education fund and I went back to work. Next slide. A list. Every time my family had assumed I was struggling financially. Every comment, every piece of advice, every condescending suggestion. My Aunt Linda told me to ask my dad for a family discount on my grandmother's house because money was tight for me. My mother told me I should be realistic about my career goals. Catherine offered to set me up with a financial planner because she was worried I didn't know how to budget. I could see Catherine's face from where I stood. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Meanwhile, I own 9 properties worth a combined $18.4 million. I had $17 million in managed investments. I employed 11 people directly and another 20 through project contracts. Next slide, my current portfolio, every property listed, every investment account, every business interest, all of it documented, verified, real, current net worth, $22,600,000. Nobody was murmuring anymore. The silence was absolute. 22 million, I repeated. That's what your practical daughter built. Your steady daughter, your daughter who turned out just fine. My father opened his mouth. Nothing came out, but it gets better, I promised. Because 3 months ago, my mother asked me to contribute to Dad's retirement fund. She calculated that I could afford $1,000 a month, based on what she thought I made. Next slide, the retirement fund spreadsheet. Catherine, $2,000. Marcus, $1,500. Me, $1,000. I agreed to $1,000. I didn't argue. I didn't explain, I just said yes. Next slide. What $1,000 a month represented as a percentage of my actual income, 0.04%. For context, I added, I spend more than that on Julian's Mandarin tutor. I spend more than that on coffee. My mother was crying, quiet tears running down her face. Then my brother just stood up in front of 200 people and said my son isn't really family. I looked at Marcus. He couldn't meet my eyes. My son, who carries my blood. Who carries this family's DNA. Who is smarter at 8 than most adults in this pavilion. My brother said he doesn't belong. I advanced to the next slide, Julian's academic records, his test scores, his achievements, his gifted program placement. This is who Julian is, I stated. 99th percentile across every measure, reading at an 8th grade level in 3rd grade, teaching himself coding and Mandarin, winning chess tournaments against kids twice his age. Next slide. A photo of Julian with Ms. Evelyn at a science fair. He was holding a trophy. This is Ms. Evelyn Rodriguez, Julian's kindergarten teacher. She saw in Julian what my own family has never bothered to look for. She told me he was exceptional when he was 6 years old. She's been encouraging him, supporting him, believing in him ever since. Ms. Evelyn raised her hand slightly. People turned to look at her. She's here today because she's more family to us than most of the people in this pavilion. Because family isn't about blood, it's about who sees you, who values you, who shows up. Next slide. Every family event from the past 5 years. Photos from my phone, time-stamped, dated. These are the gatherings I attended, where I watched my family celebrate Catherine's achievements and Marcus's promotions and Sophie's dance recitals, where I smiled and nodded and pretended I was exactly who you thought I was. Catherine stood. "Diane, please sit down, Catherine." She sat. "3 weeks ago, I asked Mom for $2,000 for Julian's birthday. I told her I was planning something special, but money was tight. You know what she said?" I didn't wait for an answer. She said she couldn't help because they were saving for Dad's retirement. She suggested I ask you, Catherine, because you and Derek are doing so well. Next slide. The text of that conversation, screenshots, timestamps. I didn't actually need the money. I'd already booked the premium package at the Science Center. $4,200, paid in full. I asked her because I wanted to know, would she help me the way she'd helped you with Sophie's preschool, the way she'd helped Marcus with his wedding? I looked at my mother. The answer was no. She'd give you thousands without question, but she couldn't spare $2,000 for me. My mother was shaking her head. "That's not fair. We didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked." My voice was flat. "In 13 years, not one of you asked what I actually did for work. Not one of you asked if I was happy, if I was successful, if I needed help or support or recognition. You just decided I was fine, steady, practical, and you moved on." Next slide, the trust paperwork, the $50,000 I'd promised my father. "This is the trust I offered Dad for his birthday. $50,000, he cried. He said it was too much, too generous." Next slide, a legal document, Patricia's letterhead. "This is a letter from my attorney explaining that the trust was never finalized, that I never funded it, that it was, in fact, a test." My father stood. "A test? I wanted to see what you'd do, how you'd react, if you'd question where the money came from or just take it and assume I was overextending myself." Next slide, text messages. Catherine to Mom, Mom to Catherine, Marcus to Catherine, all of them from the week after I'd given Dad the trust paperwork. They'd spent days discussing my finances, speculating about my situation, worrying that I was in debt or making bad decisions. Not one of them had called me directly to ask. "You gossiped about me for a week," I pointed out. "You developed theories, you created narratives. Catherine even suggested I might be in some kind of trouble, but none of you just picked up the phone and said, 'Hey, Diane, what's actually going on?'" Catherine was crying now too. "We were worried. You were worried I'd embarrassed you by having money you didn't know about. That's different." Next slide. Marcus's promotion announcement, the email he'd sent to the family. "Marcus, you sent a 3-paragraph email about your promotion. You included your new salary, your territory, your company car details. You were proud. You wanted everyone to know." He nodded slightly. "I've never sent an email like that. Do you know why?" He shook his head. "Because I knew exactly what would happen. You'd all recalculate everything. Who was successful, who was smart, who mattered. And you'd find a way to make my success smaller than it actually was, to explain it, to justify it in terms that kept your worldview intact." Next slide. Every assumption they'd made about me, listed in chronological order, sourced from emails, conversations, family gatherings. Diane isn't college material. Diane's probably just coordinating things at work. Diane and James must be struggling. That house is expensive. Diane should be realistic about her career. Diane needs a financial planner. These are things you've said to me, about me, in front of me. I looked around. And I let you, because I was building something you couldn't touch, something you couldn't minimize or explain away, something that was completely mine. Final slide, 1 sentence. This is who I actually am. I'm not the daughter who turned out fine. I'm the daughter who built an empire while you weren't looking. I'm the daughter who made herself into exactly what she wanted to be despite every single one of you telling me implicitly or explicitly that I wasn't capable of it. I disconnected my phone. The screen went blank. Julian is my son. He carries my blood. He carries this family's name. And he is worth more than every single person in this pavilion combined, not in money, but in potential, in kindness, in intelligence, in character. I looked at Marcus. So when you stand up and say he isn't really family, what you're actually saying is that you're too small to recognize greatness when it's standing right in front of you. Marcus stood. His face was red. I didn't mean, I was just trying to. You were trying to put Julian in his place. The same way this family has been trying to put me in my place for 23 years. Well, here's my place, Marcus. I pulled out another document. Patricia had prepared it that morning. This is a trust I'm establishing for Julian, real one this time, $15 million, managed by Patricia Reyes, my attorney. Julian gets access at 25. The terms specify that nobody in this family, not my parents, not my siblings, not anyone here has any claim to it, any knowledge of its management, or any say in how it's used. I handed the document to my father. He took it like it might burn him. That's Julian's legacy, from me, not from this family. Because this family hasn't earned the right to be part of his future. My uncle stepped forward. Diane, I think we should all calm down. I am calm, Uncle Pete. I've been calm for 13 years. This is what calm looks like on someone who's done being invisible. Ms. Evelyn stood. She walked to where I was standing. She didn't say anything. She just stood next to me, next to Julian. My mother was sobbing now. We didn't know if you just told you what, Mom? That I was successful? Would it have changed anything? Would you have treated me differently? Or would you have just found new reasons to keep me in the box you'd built for me? She didn't answer. Catherine wiped her eyes. Her voice came out shaky. What do you want from us? I don't want anything from you. That's the point. I don't need your money. I don't need your approval. I don't need your validation. I've built a life that has nothing to do with any of you. Then why are you telling us now? My father asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. Because my son deserved better than what Marcus just did, and because I'm done protecting you from the truth about who I am. Patricia stepped out from near the dessert table. I hadn't even seen her arrive. She walked to the front. She handed me an envelope. What's that? Catherine asked. I opened it. Inside were documents. Legal documents. This is a formal notice that I'm removing myself from all family financial arrangements. I'm withdrawing my commitment to contribute to Dad's retirement fund. I'm removing myself as a beneficiary from any future family trusts or estates. I'm legally separating my assets and Julian's assets from any claim this family might try to make. Patricia's voice was professional, detached. I've filed these with the appropriate courts. They're effective immediately. Ms. Diane is now legally and financially independent from all family obligations and inheritances. My mother looked like someone had slapped her. You can't just, I did, it's done. Marcus found his voice. Over what? One stupid comment? You're going to burn down the whole family because I said something drunk and stupid. No, Marcus. I'm setting a boundary that should have been set 23 years ago. You saying Julian isn't family was just the last straw. This has been building since I was 15 and Dad told me I wasn't college material. Since I was 24 and closed my first major deal and nobody asked about it. Since I was 27 and made partner and got a card that said, proud of you. I looked around at all of them. 200 people. Most of them strangers. Some of them family only by blood. I've spent my entire adult life being underestimated by the people who were supposed to know me best. I'm done with that. Julian will never experience what I experienced. He will never doubt his worth because his family can't see it. And if that means separating from you, then that's what it means. James appeared at my side. He'd been standing back letting me handle it, but now he put his hand on my shoulder. We're leaving, he said quietly. I nodded. Julian took my hand. Ms. Evelyn walked with us. We made it 3 steps before my mother called out. Diane, please, can we just talk about this? I turned. What is there to talk about? We made mistakes. We didn't see we should have. She was struggling. I'm sorry, we're sorry. Please don't do this. I'm not doing anything, Mom. I'm just being honest about what already is. You didn't see me. You didn't value me. You didn't think I mattered in the same way Catherine and Marcus mattered. And now you know the truth. What you do with that is up to you. Catherine stepped forward. If we'd known if you told us, you would have what, Catherine? Treated me better? Been proud of me? Or would you have found reasons why my success didn't count? Why it wasn't as impressive as yours? Why I didn't deserve the same recognition? She stopped, because we both knew the answer. My father tried one more time. You're my daughter. You'll always be my daughter. Yes, I will, but I won't be your assumption anymore. I won't be your afterthought. I won't be the one who turned out fine while Catherine turned out great and Marcus turned out ambitious. I'll just be me, and you can decide if that's enough. We walked to the car. Behind us, I could hear voices. Confused, angry, shocked, Julian got in the back seat. He buckled his seatbelt. He looked at me in the rearview mirror. Did I do good, Mom? You did perfect, buddy. Uncle Marcus looked really surprised. He was. Are they going to be mad? Probably. Is that okay? I thought about it. About 13 years of silence. About every assumption and dismissal and condescending comment. About building an empire in secret because it was safer than fighting for space in a family that had already decided I didn't deserve it. Yeah, I told my son. It's okay. James started the car. Ms. Evelyn followed in hers. We left the pavilion, left the family reunion, left 200 people and 23 years of being invisible. My phone started ringing before we got out of the parking lot. I turned it off. The next 3 days were chaos. My phone did not stop. Texts, calls, voicemails. My mother left 14 messages. Catherine left 9. Marcus left 2, then stopped. I did not answer any of them. Patricia called on day 4. Your father wants to meet. He says he'll come to your office. Alone? No. Deanne, I'm not ready. When will you be ready? I don't know, maybe never. She was quiet for a moment. Fair enough, I'll tell him. James asked me on day 5 if I was okay. I was sitting in the office, looking at property listings. I did that when I needed to think. I don't feel guilty, I admitted. Is that wrong? No. I keep waiting to feel bad, to regret it. But I don't. You told the truth, that's not something to regret. I humiliated them in front of 200 people. They humiliated you for 23 years. You just had an audience when you finally responded. Julian came home from chess club that afternoon. He had won his match. He was excited. Can I tell Grandma? He asked. I looked at James. He looked back at me. Not right now, buddy, I said gently. Why not? Because Grandma and I need some space right now. Because of the reunion? Yeah, because of the reunion. She was wrong about me not being family. Yes, she was. Are you still mad at her? I thought about that. Was I mad or was I just done? I'm not mad, I said. I'm just sad that she couldn't see what was right in front of her. He hugged me. I see you, Mom. I cried then, not sad crying, not angry crying, just release. 2 weeks later, Catherine showed up at my office. She did not call first. She just appeared in the lobby. My assistant buzzed me. Your sister is here. I almost said to send her away, but I was curious. Send her up. She walked into my office and stopped. She looked around. The view, the furniture, the artwork on the walls, the assistant outside, the conference room visible through glass doors. This is really your office, she said. Yes. I thought maybe you were exaggerating. At the reunion. I don't exaggerate. She sat down without being invited. I've been thinking about what you said. Okay. I want you to know I never meant to make you feel less than. I genuinely thought I was helping, offering advice, being a good sister. By telling me I needed a financial planner, I didn't know you were worth, what did you say? 22 million? 22.6. She flinched. Right, 22.6 million, I didn't know. If I'd known, what would you have done differently, Catherine? She opened her mouth, closed it. Opened it again? I don't know, she finally admitted. Exactly, that's the problem, you don't know because you never looked, none of you did. We could have. If you told us, I shouldn't have had to tell you. You should have been curious. You should have asked. You should have noticed that I was always fine with money but never stressed. That I paid for dinners without blinking. That Julian had every resource he could possibly need. You should have wondered. She looked down at her hands. You're right. I know I'm right. So what now? You just cut us all off. I don't know yet. I'm figuring it out. Mom is devastated. Good. Catherine looked up sharply. That's cruel. Is it? She spent 23 years making assumptions about me, never asking, never checking, just deciding I was one thing and treating me accordingly. She should be devastated. She should sit with what she missed, what she lost by never bothering to look. We're still family. Are we? Because Marcus stood up in front of 200 people and said my son isn't really family, and Mom divided Grandma's estate based on what she thought we needed instead of splitting it equally. And you questioned my stability when I gave Dad $50,000 because you couldn't imagine I actually had that kind of money. Catherine's eyes were wet. I don't know how to fix this. Maybe you can't. I want to try. Why? Because you're my sister. I looked at her. This woman I'd known my entire life. This woman who'd been celebrated while I'd been dismissed. This woman who'd never once asked about my life beyond the surface questions. Being sisters is biology, Catherine. It's not a relationship. We're related, but we're not close. We've never been close. You've just never noticed because you were too busy being the smart one. She stood. I don't accept that. You don't have to accept it. It's just true. I want to know you, the real you. Why now? Why not 5 years ago? 10 years ago? Why does it take me having more money than you for you to suddenly be interested in who I actually am? She did not have an answer for that. I think you should go, I said. She left. I watched her walk to the elevator. She looked back once. I did not wave. Marcus never came, never called. Nothing. 3 months later, I heard through my Aunt Linda that he and Emma had separated, something about him drinking too much, making poor decisions. I felt nothing about it. My mother called every week for 6 weeks. I did not answer. On the 7th week, she stopped calling. My father sent a letter, handwritten, 5 pages. He was sorry. He had not known. He had made assumptions. He had failed me as a father. He wanted to make it right. I read it once, then I put it in a drawer. James asked if I was going to respond. No, I answered. Never. I don't know, maybe someday, but not now. What are you waiting for? For it to not hurt anymore. Does it hurt? I thought about that. Not the way you'd think. It hurts that they couldn't see me, but it doesn't hurt that I told them the truth. That part feels good. 6 months passed. Julian turned 9, we threw him a party. Science museum again, his whole class came. Ms. Evelyn came, she'd officially retired by then. She told Julian she was proud of him. He beamed. My family was not invited. My mother found out somehow. She called. I answered this time. You didn't invite us to Julian's birthday, she said. No hello. No, he's our grandson. And you're welcome to have a relationship with him when you're ready to see him for who he actually is instead of who you think he should be. We've always loved Julian. Marcus said he wasn't really family, Mom. At a family reunion, in front of 200 people. You think I'm going to subject Julian to that again? Marcus was drunk. He didn't mean it. Yes, he did. That's the problem. He meant it. He just didn't think there would be consequences for saying it. What do you want from us? I want you to sit with what you did. I want you to understand that you had a daughter who built something extraordinary and you never once asked about it. I want you to realize that your assumptions cost you a relationship with me and with your grandson. For how long? I don't know. Diane, please, I have to go, Mom. I hung up. James asked me that night if I thought I'd ever forgive them. I already have, I told him. That's not the issue. Then what is? Trust. I don't trust them to see me. I don't trust them not to do it again. And I'm not interested in performing a relationship just because we share DNA. What about Julian? He asks about them sometimes. I know. And when he's old enough, he can decide for himself what kind of relationship he wants with them. But right now, my job is to protect him. To make sure he never doubts his worth because the people around him can't recognize it. 1 year after the reunion, Patricia called with news. Your father's retiring, she informed me. Okay. Catherine and Marcus are covering the full retirement fund, $5,200 a month, split between them. That's more than they'd planned. Yes, apparently they realized they needed to step up after you withdrew. Good for them. Your mother wants you to know they're managing it. That you don't need to contribute. I never planned to contribute. That was the point. I know, I'm just delivering the message. Is there anything else? Your father asked if you'd consider coming to his retirement party. No, I told him you'd say that. Then why ask? He wanted me to tell you he's proud of you, that he's always been proud of you. He just didn't know how to show it. I was quiet for a long moment. Tell him thank you, but it's too late for that to matter. I hung up. I sat in my office. I looked out at the city. I had built this. All of it, the business, the wealth, the life I wanted. I had done it without them, without their support or recognition or approval. And I did not need them to be proud of me now, because I was proud of myself. That was enough. Julian started 4th grade that fall. He was still in the regular progression. Still the smartest kid in his class. Still kind and curious and everything I'd hoped he'd be. Ms. Evelyn came to dinner once a month. She and Julian would talk about books and science and ideas. She never asked about my family. She understood without being told. Catherine sent a Christmas card, just the card, no note, no explanation. I put it in the recycling. Marcus did not send anything. My mother called on Julian's 10th birthday. I answered. Happy birthday to Julian, she said. Thank you, I'll tell him you called. Can I talk to him? I looked at Julian. He was opening presents. He was happy. Not today, Mom. When? I don't know. It's been 2 years, Diane. I know how long it's been. How long are you going to punish us? I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting my son. There's a difference. From what? From his own family? From people who have already demonstrated they'll make him feel less than. Yes. We would never, you already did. And until I'm confident it won't happen again, the answer is no. I hung up before she could respond. At night, Julian asked me if Grandma was sad. Probably, I admitted. Do you feel bad? Sometimes, but not bad enough to change my mind. Why not? Because feeling bad isn't a good reason to let people hurt you, or to let them hurt the people you love. He thought about that. Like you're protecting me. Exactly like that. I'm glad you're my mom. I'm glad you're my son. He hugged me, then he went back to his birthday presents. James found me in the kitchen later. You doing okay? Yeah, I am. No regrets. About the reunion? No. About what came after? Sometimes, but mostly no. What changed? I'm not invisible anymore. I don't carry their assumptions. I don't perform a version of myself that makes them comfortable. I'm just me. And Julian gets to grow up knowing that being yourself is more important than being what other people expect. That's a good lesson. It's the only lesson that matters. I run a company now worth over 50 million. I have 23 employees. I own 14 properties. Julian's trust is worth 18 million and growing. My family doesn't know any of the new numbers. They know what I told them 2 years ago, and that's all they'll ever know. Catherine and I exchange cards at Christmas, nothing more. Marcus and I have no contact. My parents call on birthdays and holidays. I answer sometimes. The conversations are brief, surface level. We don't talk about the reunion. We don't talk about what I do for work. We don't talk about anything that matters. It's not a relationship. It's an acquaintance maintained through obligation. Julian is 11 now. He still asks about them occasionally. Less than he used to. He's building his own life, his own interests, his own understanding of what family means. Ms. Evelyn passed away last year. Heart attack. Sudden. Julian and I went to the funeral. We sat in the front row because she'd listed us as family in her will. She left Julian her book collection, 2,000 books. He cried for a week. She was more family to us than my blood relatives ever were. That tells you everything you need to know. I don't hate my family. I don't even think about them most days. They're just people I used to know who couldn't see past their own assumptions, who built a story about who I was and never bothered to check if it was true. They know the truth now. What they do with it is up to them. I'm done carrying their limitations. Some people say I should have just walked away quietly. Others say I humiliated them unnecessarily. My mother still thinks I owe her an apology, but here's what I know. I spent 23 years being invisible to the people who were supposed to see me most clearly. I built an empire in secret because it was safer than fighting for space in a family that had already decided I didn't matter. And when my brother stood up and said my son wasn't really family, I made a choice. To be visible. To tell the truth. To set a boundary that protected Julian from experiencing what I'd experienced. I don't regret it. Not for a second. So I genuinely want to know, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. But there was one more thing I hadn't told them at the reunion. One piece I'd held back because I wanted to see what they'd do with the information I'd already given them. 6 months after the reunion, Patricia called. Catherine filed something. Filed what? A motion to contest your grandmother's estate distribution. She's claiming undue influence. Says your father wasn't mentally competent when he divided the inheritance. She wants it redistributed equally. I sat very still. Equally. She's asking for the difference. Since you got 75 and she got 150, she wants you to receive an additional 37,500 from the estate. To make it fair. That's what the filing says. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. What's funny? Patricia asked. She still thinks I need the money. After everything I told them, after showing them the numbers, she still thinks $37,500 matters to me. Do you want to contest it? No, let her have it, but I want to do something else. What? I want to make a donation in my grandmother's name to Julian's school for the gifted program. How much? 500,000. Patricia was quiet. Then, that's going to make the news, local paper at minimum. I know, your family will see it. I'm counting on it. The donation was announced 3 weeks later. The school held a press conference. They were naming the new STEM lab after my grandmother. The article ran in the city paper, then the business journal. Then it got picked up regionally. My phone started ringing within an hour. I didn't answer. Catherine showed up at my office the next day, again without calling. My assistant tried to stop her. Catherine pushed past. She walked into my office. Her face was red. Her hands were shaking. $500,000, she said. No greeting. You donated $500,000. Yes. While I'm in court trying to get you $37,000 from Grandma's estate. You're the one who filed the motion, not me. You knew. When you saw the filing, you knew I looked like an idiot, and you did this anyway. I did this because the gifted program needed funding, because kids like Julian deserve resources. It has nothing to do with you. She slammed her hand on my desk. Everything you do is about me, about proving you're better than me, smarter than me, more successful than me. Catherine, I've never thought about you that much. That's the problem. You think this is some competition between us. It's not. It never was. I built my life. You weren't a factor in it. Then why the donation? Why now? Because the program was losing funding. Because Ms. Evelyn asked me to help before she died. Because I could. $500,000. It's not that much money. She made a sound like I'd punched her. Not that much. Do you hear yourself? Do you have any idea how condescending you sound? I'm not being condescending, I'm being honest. 500,000 is a meaningful donation, but it's not a significant percentage of my net worth. I can afford it, so I did it. Well, I'm fighting for 37,000. You're the one who filed the motion. You're the one who decided the estate wasn't distributed fairly. I didn't ask you to do that. She sat down. She looked defeated. I don't know who you are anymore. You never knew who I was, that's what I've been trying to tell you. So what now? You just keep humiliating us, keep showing off how much money you have. I'm not showing off, I'm living my life. If that makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem, not mine. You've changed. No, you just finally see me, and you don't like what you see because it doesn't match the story you told yourself about who I was. She stood. I'm withdrawing the motion. Okay, and I don't want your money, any of it. Keep your 37,000, keep everything, I don't want it. Fine. Is that all you have to say? Fine. What do you want me to say, Catherine? That I'm sorry I'm successful, that I'm sorry I didn't stay small and manageable and easy to dismiss? I'm not sorry. I worked for this, I earned this, and I'm not going to apologize for it to make you feel better. She left. The door closed hard behind her. Patricia called an hour later. Catherine's attorney filed a withdrawal. The motion is dismissed. Good, there's something else. What? Your father wants to meet. He says it's important. He's willing to come to your office. Bring an attorney if you want. He just needs to talk to you. I looked out my window, at the city I'd conquered while my family thought I was coordinating spreadsheets. Fine, next Thursday, 2 o'clock. He gets 30 minutes. My father showed up on time. He looked older, grayer. He was wearing a suit. I'd never seen him in a suit except at weddings and funerals. He sat across from my desk. He looked around the office the same way Catherine had, taking it in, processing it. This is really yours, he said. Yes. I mean, this is your office, your company, your building. I'm a partner, I own 20% of the firm, but yes, this is my office. He nodded slowly. I've been thinking about what you said. At the reunion? Okay. About how we never asked. Never looked, never saw you. I waited. You were right. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't see you. I had this idea of who you were, who you'd be, and I never checked to see if I was right. No, you didn't. I told you at 15 that you weren't cut out for college. Do you remember that? Yes. You got a 3.7, you graduated with honors, you built all of this. He gestured around the office. And I missed it, all of it. Because I'd already decided you were one thing and I never looked to see if you were something else. That's accurate. He pulled an envelope from his pocket. I wrote you a letter after the reunion. Did you get it? I got it. Did you read it? Once. Did you? Is there anything I can do to fix this? I looked at my father, this man who'd raised me, who taught me to ride a bike and taken me to school and paid for my braces. This man who'd also told me I wasn't college material and divided an inheritance based on assumptions and never once asked what I actually did for work. I don't know, I admitted. I don't know if this is fixable. I want to try. Why? Because you found out I have money, because I'm not who you thought I was, because you're my daughter, and I failed you, and I want to do better. For how long? Until I do something that disappoints you again. Until I don't fit the new story you're telling yourself about who I am. I don't have a story anymore. I just want to know you. The real you? I thought about that. About 13 years of silence. About 2 years of distance. About all the ways they'd missed me while I was standing right in front of them. I need time, I finally said. How much time? I don't know, maybe a lot, maybe forever. I don't know if I can trust you to see me, to keep seeing me, even when it's uncomfortable or surprising or doesn't match what you expect. He stood. I'll wait. However long it takes, I'll wait. He left. I sat in my office for a long time after. James asked me that night if I was okay. My father came to my office. What did he want? To apologize, to try to fix things. What did you say? That I need time. Do you think you'll forgive him? I already forgave him. That's not the problem. The problem is trust. I don't know if I can trust any of them to see me consistently, to not revert back to their assumptions the moment I do something they don't understand. That's fair. Is it? Or am I being too hard on them? James pulled me close. You get to decide what you need to feel safe, what you need to protect yourself and Julian. Nobody else gets to decide that for you. 2 years after the reunion, my mother called on Julian's 12th birthday. I answered. Happy birthday to Julian, she said, same as every year. Thank you. How is he? He's good, really good. Can I talk to him? I looked at Julian. He was in his room, reading. He'd just started 8th grade. He'd skipped 6th entirely. He was thriving. Hold on. I walked to his room. Grandma's on the phone. She wants to wish you happy birthday. You don't have to talk to her if you don't want to. He looked up from his book. What do you want me to do? It's your choice, buddy, not mine. He thought about it. Then he held out his hand for the phone. I gave it to him. I left the room to give him privacy. 5 minutes later, he came out. He handed me the phone. How was it? I asked. Fine. She asked about school. About chess. Normal stuff. How do you feel? I don't know, it was weird, but not bad weird, just weird. Do you want to talk to her again? Maybe I'll think about it. That night, my mother called back. Thank you, she said, for letting him talk to me. It was his choice, not mine. He sounds happy. He is. You did a good job with him. I know, she laughed, a small, sad laugh. You're not going to make this easy, are you? Why should I? You shouldn't. I'm trying, Diane. I know it's late. I know I can't undo the past, but I'm trying. I see that. Is it enough? I don't know yet. Ask me in another year. She accepted that. We hung up. Catherine sent a Christmas card that year, with a note this time, short, simple, I'm sorry, I should have seen you. I want to do better. I didn't respond, but I didn't throw it away either. Marcus never reached out. I heard through family that he'd moved to another state, that he was sober now, working on himself. I felt nothing about it, no anger, no satisfaction, nothing. 3 years after the reunion, my father had a heart attack, a real one this time. Catherine called me from the hospital. Dad's in surgery, she said without preamble. It's bad, triple bypass, Mom's a mess, can you come? I almost said no. Then I thought about Julian, about the phone call 2 years ago, about how he'd said it was weird but not bad weird. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I drove to the hospital. Catherine was in the waiting room, so was Marcus. He'd flown in. We made eye contact. He nodded, I nodded back. We didn't speak. My mother was crying. She saw me and stood up. She looked like she wanted to hug me. I stayed where I was. Thank you for coming, she managed. How is he? We don't know yet. He's been in surgery for 3 hours. I sat down. James had stayed home with Julian. This was something I needed to do alone. We waited. Catherine got coffee. Marcus paced. My mother cried quietly. At hour 5, a doctor came out. My father had survived. The surgery went well. He'd need extensive recovery, but he was stable. My mother collapsed in relief. Catherine caught her. Marcus wiped his eyes. I stood. I'm glad he's okay. Call me when he's awake. My mother grabbed my hand. Stay, please, just for a little while. I looked at her, really looked at her. She looked old, tired, small. Okay, I said, for a little while. We sat together in that waiting room for 2 more hours. We didn't talk much. But we were together, and maybe that was enough for now. My father woke up the next morning. I was at work when Catherine called. He's awake. He's asking for you. I drove to the hospital. He was in ICU, tubes and monitors everywhere, but his eyes were clear. Hey, Dad, you came? His voice was rough, weak. Yeah, I came. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't. He tried to smile. I'm glad you did. How do you feel? Like someone cracked my chest open and rearranged my heart. That's pretty much what happened. He laughed, then winced. Don't make me laugh, it hurts. I pulled a chair close to the bed. You scared everyone. I scared myself. He paused. Diane, if I don't make it, you're going to make it. But if I don't, I need you to know, I see you now, I see what you built, who you are, and I'm proud. I should have said it years ago, but I'm saying it now, I'm proud of you. Something in my chest cracked, just a little. Thank you, I whispered. Can we start over, not forget everything, but maybe try again? I thought about 13 years of silence, 2 years of distance, 3 years of careful boundaries, all the ways they'd missed me, all the ways I'd protected myself. Maybe, I said, we can try. He squeezed my hand. That's all I'm asking. My father recovered. It took 6 months. Physical therapy, dietary changes, medications. My mother took care of him. Catherine visited every week. Marcus flew in twice. I visited once a month. We kept the conversations light. Surface level, we were building something new, slowly, carefully. Julian came with me sometimes. He'd talk to his grandfather about school, about chess, about the books he was reading. My father listened, really listened. He asked questions. He remembered the answers. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. 4 years after the reunion, Julian turned 13. We threw a party, small this time, just his closest friends. Ms. Evelyn's niece came. She donated her aunt's book collection to Julian. We'd stayed in touch. My family was invited. They came, all of them, even Marcus. It was awkward at first. Catherine brought an expensive gift. My mother cried when she saw how tall Julian had gotten. Marcus shook Julian's hand and told him he was sorry for what he'd said at the reunion. Julian accepted the apology. It's okay, Uncle Marcus. Mom says people make mistakes. What matters is what they do after. We ate cake. We sang Happy Birthday. Julian blew out the candles on the first try. My father pulled me aside afterward. This is nice, being here, being included. Don't get used to it, I said, but I smiled when I said it. I won't, I know we're on probation. Multi-year probation. I'll take it. We stood together, watching Julian open presents, watching my family try to rebuild what they'd broken. Do you think we'll ever be normal? He asked. I don't know, maybe, maybe not, but we're here. That's more than I thought we'd have. It's more than I deserve. Probably, but Julian deserves to know his grandparents if you can be the grandparents he deserves. We're trying. I see that. And I did. I saw my mother learning to ask questions instead of making assumptions. I saw Catherine checking herself when she started to give unsolicited advice. I saw my father looking at Julian with real interest instead of vague affection. They were trying. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. 5 years after the reunion, I took Julian to visit colleges. He was 14 but testing at college level in most subjects. We were planning ahead. We visited 6 schools. He fell in love with MIT. They fell in love with him. On the drive home, he asked me if I was going to tell Grandma and Grandpa. Do you want me to? I don't know. It feels like they'd make it about them somehow. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. But they're trying, I see them trying. They are. But you're allowed to have things that are just yours, that don't belong to them or anyone else. Like you did with your business. Exactly like that. Did it work, keeping it secret? I thought about that. About 13 years of building in silence. About the reunion where I'd finally told the truth. About the fallout and the distance and the slow, painful rebuilding. It worked for what I needed at the time, I finally answered. But it also cost me things. Relationships. Time. Connection. There's always a cost. Do you regret it? No, but I wish it hadn't been necessary. I wish they'd seen me without me having to force them to look. They see you now. Some of them, sometimes. It's better than it was. Is that enough? I looked at my son. This brilliant, kind, thoughtful boy who'd been dragged into a family drama he didn't ask for, who'd handled it with more grace than most adults would have. It's enough for now, I told him. And that's all we can ask for. Today, I run a firm worth $83 million. I have 41 employees across 6 cities. I own 23 properties. Julian's trust is worth $26 million and growing. Julian is 16. He's a freshman at MIT. Full scholarship, not that we needed it. He's studying theoretical physics. He calls me twice a week. He's happy. My relationship with my family is what I'd call cordial. We see each other on holidays. We exchange calls on birthdays. Catherine and I have coffee sometimes. My father and I talk about sports and weather and safe topics. It's not close. We're not close. We probably never will be, but it's civil, respectful, maintained. My mother told me last Christmas that she's proud of me. I thanked her. I didn't tell her that I stopped needing her pride years ago. Some truths are kinder left unsaid. Marcus is sober now. He's working as a counselor helping other people with addiction. He sent me a letter last year. A real apology, not excuses, not explanations. Just acknowledgement of what he'd done and who he'd been. I wrote back. I told him I appreciated it. I didn't tell him we were good, because we're not, but we're not enemies either. Catherine made junior partner at a new firm. She's doing well. She still gives advice I don't ask for sometimes, but she catches herself more often now. She apologizes when she oversteps. It's progress. My father had another scare last year, not a heart attack this time, just chest pains, false alarm. But it reminded all of us how fragile this is, how temporary. He told me afterward that his biggest regret was missing my 20s and 30s, missing the building, missing the becoming. I told him he wasn't the only one who missed it. I'd hidden it from everyone. That was on me too. We're both responsible for what was lost. We're both trying to salvage what's left. I don't know if that's enough. I don't know if we'll ever be truly close, but we're trying. And maybe that's all family can be sometimes. People who are trying. Julian asked me last month if I thought I'd done the right thing. At the reunion, with the presentation, with everything that came after, I told him I didn't know, that I'd never know, that some choices don't have right or wrong answers, they just have consequences, and you live with them. He asked if I'd do it differently if I could go back. I thought about that for a long time. No, I finally said. I wouldn't. Because you needed to see that standing up for yourself is possible, that being underestimated doesn't mean being less, that your worth isn't determined by other people's ability to recognize it. Even if it cost you your family? It didn't cost me my family. It cost me the illusion of a family that never really existed. What I have now, this complicated, imperfect, still healing thing, that's more real than what I had before. He hugged me. I'm glad you're my mom. I'm glad you're my son. And that's the truth that matters, not what I lost, not what they missed, not the years of silence or the slow rebuilding. Just this, I am seen by the person who matters most. And he grew up knowing he was seen too, Everything else is just details. My mother still thinks I was too harsh at the reunion, that I humiliated them unnecessarily, that I could have handled it privately. Maybe she's right, maybe I could have, but I didn't. I chose the public confrontation. I chose the dramatic reveal. I chose to make them see me in front of everyone who'd watched me be invisible for 23 years, and I don't regret it. Some people say I went too far. That family deserves more grace, that I should have forgiven them quietly and moved on. Others say I didn't go far enough, that I should have cut them off completely, that they didn't deserve the second chances I've given them. I don't know who's right. Maybe nobody is. Maybe we're all just doing the best we can with broken things and impossible choices. What I know is this: I spent 23 years being who they needed me to be. Small, manageable, forgettable. And then I spent 2 weeks showing them who I actually was. And the years since trying to figure out if there's anything worth salvaging from what's left, I still don't have the answer. But I'm still here, still trying, still building, still protecting my son from ever doubting his worth the way I doubted mine. That has to count for something. So I genuinely want to know, did I go too far? Should I have handled it differently? Or was the public confrontation the only way they were ever going to truly see me? Tell me what you think in the comments.